We are learning after Indian origin professor Nitasha Kaul was denied entry to India as she arrived for a two-day Karnataka event and was deported back to London. It is being learned that Nitasha was sent back by the Indian authorities due to her alleged anti-India stance. Well, Professor Nitasha Kaul had said that she was denied entry due to her opinions, but NDTV has accessed the reasons as to why the government denied entry to her. My colleague Nikunj Garg has more on that. Nikunj joins us on the broadcast here. Nikunj, take us through the details here.
Well, there has been a lot of consternation both on social media and in the virtual world and in the real world about the denied entry. Frankly, this was much later a case of deportation. To begin with, it was a case of denied entry by the government to a OCI card holder. Remember, OCI card holders under the provision of the Ministry of Home Affairs are entitled to a certain number of entries as a pre-sanctioned measure by the government. Now, in her case, in case of Professor Kaul, she is an OCI card holder, but government in its wisdom decided this time that she will not be allowed to attend this conference that the Karnataka state government was organizing on Indian constitution. And government is absolutely clear that while dissent is fine, there is a line between dissent and animus. And the commentary that Professor Kaul has been making of late and quite clearly from at least 2019 onwards, be it involving the Kashmiris, India and Kashmir, Kashmiri Muslims, Kashmiri Pandits, India and Bhutan relationship, India-China relationship, India-Israeli relationship. That commentary certainly does not fall or probably breaches that fine line between the dissent and animus and reflects an attitude of Professor Kaul which clearly shows her biases against the state. Remember this, there is some very strong commentary that Professor has made about the top leadership of the country as well. But when it comes to the Indian foreign policy, Indian diplomacy, Indian people, and the commentary such as Kashmiri Pandits are pawns in the hands of Hindutva forces. India is almost alluding to the fact that India is occupying Kashmir. And India is in the same vein, just as there is large-scale reporting, large-scale commentary, not only by the Western media, but by multiple sources about the Chinese dealing of the situation of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province of China. India is dealing with Kashmiris in much the same vein. Remember, globally, there has been no comparison the way the Chinese have handled Uyghurs, not only in their capital Urumqi, but in the adjoining provinces as well. But Professor Kaul has been doing that, and that quite clearly has not been appreciated by the government circles. I am not for a moment saying whether the government decision was in the right or in the wrong. That is a decision that has to be adjudicated, if at all, by the courts of law were the professor to challenge it. But what we are doing right now, what we are currently doing is we are putting out in the public domain the government's reasons, what the government calls an obvious animus, a clear, straight animus on part of Professor Kaul on super sensitive India's issues like Kashmir, like Bhutan, like China, and the commentary that certainly breaches a thin line of dissent coming out again and again over a sustained period. Remember, Professor Kaul has been a regular to India. Professor Kaul has visited Kashmir also on a number of occasions. So it's not as if India had in the past completely barred or jammed her entry into the country. But after observing her conduct over a sustained period of time, a decision was taken at the Mandarins of North Block that probably she is breaching a thin line, and that it was important for government of India to send out a message that while dissent is fine and while there are limits to reasonable dissent, a certain bend of animosity will certainly not be tolerated, and that's what probably the government of India are trying to send out that message there. In fact, Professor Kaul at one point even said that India is using Israeli means of oppressing the people in Kashmir. Quite clearly, that kind of commentary cannot be welcomed by most governments or most governments across the globe will not tolerate that kind of comment.
Absolutely, Nikunj. Thank you so much for getting us all those inputs there. Well, those are the statements that we've put out on air by Professor Natasha Kaul, the statements that were made by her in the past that the government has found objectionable, and those are the reasons that NDTV has accessed, due to which Natasha Kaul was denied entry to India.